We've been on a diversity and inclusion journey probably for 10 years or longer, and a lot of it was inspired by a couple of really inspiring women leaders we've had. In New Zealand we had Anne Cherry, and in Australia Gail Kelly, and they really focused us on women in the bank and the fact that we were a very male-dominated industry and a male-dominated bank. There's a lot of evidence that shows that diversity of thinking, if you measure diversity in the broader sense, diversity of thinking makes much more powerful organisations, because it means that your decision making is much better. If you're getting lots of different thinking into the decision will be better. And the worst outcomes come from a kind of groupthink thing where everyone's sort of thinking along the same lines, and that can come from the fact that you've got a lack of diversity in the team that's doing the thinking. So what do you do about it? Well, diversity of thinking is not just gender, it's not just cultural, but it's also just different personalities. We are seeing, I think, much better outcomes because of that. So, you know, our board is 3/5 women, so you know, we've got a female chair. My executive team is 50-50 men and women. There are more male-dominated middle management layers that we're still working on. Bringing cultural diversity through is a challenge for us that we haven't completely nailed. You know, that's something that we want to work on. We would like our workforce and our leadership levels to look like the kind of New Zealand that we're servicing, you know, which is a very diverse society. So there's still a lot more work to be done. Interestingly, about 3 or 4 years ago, we did a survey, we sponsored a survey across employers in New Zealand, and only 53% of the survey respondents, that is people who work for big organisations in New Zealand, said that they felt comfortable bringing their whole selves to work. And I found that quite shocking, because it just seems to me that if you cannot bring your whole self to work, if you don't feel comfortable that the work environment you're working in would accept you as a person, that's a pretty terrible situation, because you're not going to feel really at home in your workplace, and probably therefore you're not going to feel as though you're going to be able to bring all your talents and power to work. So for me, that was something that really motivated ourselves to try to do more on inclusion. The gender pay gap wasn't necessarily a ground-up idea, but it was more coming from the fact that we'd been working on gender inclusion for a long period of time, and we felt we'd made good progress. We'd got to 51% women in leadership, and we were patting ourselves on the back, and aren't we good? And then, you know, there was quite a lot of talk about the gender pay gap in the country, and so we, as a leadership team, we said, well, what is our gender pay gap within Westpac? Let's look at it. When we did that maths, we came out with this horrifying number of 30.3%, which was a real shock to us, and it really woke us up. And I think that was tremendously powerful, because, you know, let's confront the data. Let's not pretend everything's fine. Let's really measure it and face into it. One of the most powerful things is actually just sharing ideas amongst other big corporates, and that to me is the real power of Champions for Change, that it's a group of large employers and others who just get together and say, what's worked for you, what hasn't. If the leaders talk about this as an issue, and if I go on the record in public, and the rest of my team right through the bank sees that I've come out in public on it, they kind of think, oh yeah, they are serious about this thing. So it's breaking through those sort of those old biases, whether they're conscious or unconscious.